In this episode of Radio KD8TTE, we're going to handle a question. Should we use the word exercise in the text of a radiogram? Stick around. In July of 2020, the American Radio Relay League Ohio section is in the midst of a project, the County Information Report Project 20. The objective of this project is to establish a means of effective radio messaging throughout the entirety of the Ohio section. We're having messages go by radio only, from the section to the districts, from the districts to the counties, and then from the counties back to the section. As part of this project, the section is sending messages to the districts, informing them that they need to instruct the counties to gather information from the local county and send it back to a station at the section level. This information then can be compiled so that at the section we can have a list, for example, of the places that are prone to flooding in each county. As we are passing these messages around, here's an example of what they look like. The question has come up by one of the relay stations whether these messages should have the word exercise in the text. The idea being that this is part of an exercise or that this is some kind of traffic that might not make sense to the relay station. In fact, the use of the word exercise is strongly encouraged and is part of the NTS procedure anytime that we are working in an exercise and we are moving messages that might be confused with any real-world situation. For example, in the case of an exercise where we have a message that is talking about flooding happening at a particular location, where people are being moved from their homes and into shelters or anything along those lines, we want to put the word exercise in the text. The reason for this is we understand that there are people who are listening to the amateur bands, and they will intercept these messages, they will hear them, and we want to make sure that people do not confuse those exercise messages for a situation that is happening in the real world. In the case of the County Information Report Project, what we have is not information about a fictitious situation, an exercise that would be potentially confused with a real-world situation, but in fact, this is real-world traffic. We are actually asking the districts to send a message to the counties, actually having them send real information back to the section. We're not asking about a situation that is happening now. We're simply asking about information that somebody who is from that county would know just by virtue of being local. So this is not actually an exercise, it is real-world traffic, and therefore the use of the word exercise in the text is not necessary. The question comes up, would it hurt? Well, in theory, it does not hurt to have the word exercise in there, but in practice, what we have found is that sometimes a station will receive a message that says exercise and believe that the job is done by receiving it, and they won't actually relay it the way that they should. Now, that should not happen. If you accept traffic and it says exercise in there, you should relay the message as you would normally. The fact of the matter is that there are people who are interpreting the message and then acting upon the text as opposed to acting only upon the handling instructions, the op note, and the procedures that we have for operating in the national traffic system. So again, real-world message, asking for real information, not necessary to include the word exercise, even if it is part of a project ongoing, even if it's a part of a project that's leading up to an exercise. If, however, we are sending a message that could be confused with a real-world situation, the use of the word exercise in the text is strongly encouraged and would make a lot of sense. When you're originating messages, It's a good idea always to think about not just the end recipient, but anybody who is in the middle, including those listeners who might just be listening on the amateur bands. If there's a chance of something being confused with the real world, use the word exercise and avoid the confusion. This is Radio KD8TTE, out.